What's up, traders? Welcome back to my YouTube channel, and this is Phase 3. Today, we're going to be going over one simple signal that will print money on a weekly basis. But first, let's take a trip down the Stacey Burke memory lane. Now, this picture should be familiar. If it's not, you definitely have homework to do. But to keep it simple, are you selling high or are you buying low? These are two different setups. In this example, he's showing trap and shifts, right? At the high and at the low. But which setup are you taking? You have to get specific. You have to. That is the first thing that you need to decide before you start to implement this strategy. So, what setup are you hunting? Are you hunting sell high, where you're taking trades off the high of month, high of week, high of day, previous levels as well? Or are you buying low off of low of month, low of week, and low of day and previous levels? So, make that decision, guys. This is another very, very important picture, I would say. Does it look like this? Are you buying low? If you're buying low, what's it look like on the day? In this example, we have a consolidation. Prices in a box. Equity hour opens up, it dumps out of the box. It hits previous day low level and gives pin hammers and engulfments off these levels. So that's something that you need to be looking for. And it will be a trap and shift or a dump coil pump. Vice versa for sell high setup. And these moves will be started by lower lows. Lower low equals pump, coil to previous day high level. And then we take pin hammers and engulfments off these levels, right? So, as I stated before, what setup are you hunting? Don't be this guy. Hold on, let me make my marker red so you can see. Do not be that guy, okay? Don't be the guy with the weird mustache that diddles in the middle. You don't want to be this guy. Don't be that guy. Take trades off of levels and closing price, not diddling in the middle, okay? So let's move on. This is a nice one that I always liked. I saved in my playbook. You have your closing breakout signal, which is what we're talking about today. And then this is the previous day's high, right? And you get a signal. So we're looking, right? Because we've breached it. Now, if I'm looking for the reversal trade, because this is a sell high setup, right? Closing breakout reversal trade, then this is the trade that I'm looking for. Breakout, pullback, fail, reverse. And you're taking pin hammers and engulfments off these levels. After it fails here, it breaks back inside the range, the previous day's range, and retests the previous day's high level right here. And you're taking pin hammers and engulfments off these levels. All right. So now we're going to dive in to what a closing breakout signal actually looks like. All right. So let's talk about the closing breakout signal. We're going to start off with buy setups. All right. So when you're taking buy setups and you're using the closing breakout signal, these are the variations you're going to have when you're taking your trades. So let's look at example number 1. Say this is the previous day's high level, right? Well, when price breaks out of that level, if it breaches the previous day's high and we're looking for buy setups, then we're looking for the dump coil pump. Why? Because we have a higher high made, right? We have breach a previous day high, higher high equals dump coil pump. We're taking pin hammers and engulfments off of these levels, right? So this is variation number 1. Let's look at number 2. Say we're at the previous day's low level, right? Before we were at the previous day's high. What if we're at the previous day's low? Well, then we're looking for the reversal trade, right? So it breaks out of the previous day's low. You get a low made, right? And then it breaks, it gives a higher high on the inside. So once I put my trend line down and I get that break of the previous day's low level, I'm looking for the reversal trade because I'm coming to the charts and saying, I take only buy setups, even if I'm at the previous day's low. I'm just looking for the reversal trade. So it breaches the previous day's low, makes that low, then it gives you higher high in the inside of the dump, retest the previous day's low, and take engulfments and pin hammers off of that level. All right. So that's variation number 2. Then you have variation number 3, where you're at closing price. So closing price could be acting as support. Okay. So say you're in the middle, technically, but you're at closing price. So you're at a level. Price will break out, right? Make a higher high, dump, coil, and pump off of this level. And you're taking pin hammers and engulfments, right? So usually this will actually be like higher. And then you'll get that higher high, and then it'll dump back down to the level. Either way, it will always be at a level every time. And you're taking your trades off of that. Okay. So let's look at the last example. Number 4. Say we're at the previous day's high and closing price, right? We can sometimes, when we're looking at the previous day's high level, closing price can be right next to it, and it can be acting as support, both of the levels. You'll see that a lot, especially with close and breakout signals. When it closes up high, closing price is right next to the previous day's high, and they can be acting as levels of support. And you're taking pin hammers and engulfments off of these levels. So now let's look at sell setups, right? So say I come to the charts, my signal is close and breakout, and I'm only taking sell setups. Well, let's look at the variations. Let's look at number 1. Say we're at the previous day's low level, right? Then we're looking for the trend continuation pattern. We break out of the previous day's low. We make lower low, pump back up to a level, previous day's low. It'll coil, make M patterns. You're looking for these, right? Trap and shifts or dump, pump coil dumps. So either way, at these levels, you're going to clearly see pin hammers and engulfments off of these levels, and you're taking the trade. All right. So that's variation number 1. Let's look at number 2. Say we're at the previous day's high. Even when we're at the high, we can still look for a sell because we're now looking for reversal trades. So it breaks out, pulls back, fails, and reverses. And usually I like to look for my trade. Once it makes that lower low on the inside, it's going to pump back up and retest that previous day's high. And I take entry there, pin hammers and engulfments. All right, so let's look at number 3. Say we're at closing price. All right, technically that's in the middle, but we're at a level. So closing price can be acting as resistance. All right, we can have pin hammers and engulfments off of this level, a clear area of resistance being made. Lower low, pump back up, respect this peak formation, dump. All right. So I look for those types of patterns. Even here for the last variation, you get closing price and previous day low acting as resistance. I'm going to just use R. But as you can see, we're getting pin hammers and engulfments off of these levels. This is what I'm looking for, that coil at that level. All right. So now we're going to take a look at the charts. We're going to take a look at some close and breakout signals and just see what we find. All right, so we're on SPX 500 and we have a close and breakout on Monday. So Tuesday, we're looking for our trade, right? So in this scenario, we have a buy setup, right? So we have a breach of the previous day's high. And as you can see, it broke out, made a higher high here, higher high, dump back down, coil, pump, right? But this is the 1 hour time frame. So let's go to the 15-minute and I'll show you how I look for these pin hammers and engulfments. Super simple. So if we scroll in, right, as you can see, we got that higher high here is dumped back down, coiled at the previous day's high level. We're looking for that breakout pullback trend continuation trade. So after I get that higher high in the inside of my dump, so I put my trend line down. Once I get that higher high, I'll wait for the dump back down to the level closing. I'm sorry, previous day high. And we're taking pin hammers and engulfments off of these levels, guys. Just as simple as that. Pin hammers and engulfments off of these levels. Obviously, if you're entering off the 15-minute time frame, you lose a bit of range. But if you're entering on the 5 minute, so usually I'll drop down to my 5-minute time frame. And let's just go and take a look at it here. You have more range to work with. So this was, let's see, I enter after 9:30. So I'm usually entering right off the previous day's high level, and I would entered right at this engulfing candle. All right, and you can hold till the close of the day. That is up to you. Usually I'll take profit where the dump started. That is always my first TP, if not my only TP. So I'm not a greedy person. I just like to get paid. I like to get in and get out. And I think that every trader should think like that. So let's take a look at another example. All right, so this is UJ, and we had a closing breakout on Friday long. So on Monday, we have a buy setup, a continuation trade, right? We have a breakout pullback trend. So on the day, we get a breach of the previous day's high. And if we're looking for buy setups only, then we're looking for the dump and pump model. So once it breaches the previous day's high, it breaks out and it pullbacks and coils at the high. So if we go to the 15-minute time frame, here's what I'm seeing. I'll usually have my trend line down. I'm a New York session trader. Okay. So I'll put my trend line down. And if you notice inside of my trend line, we get breaks of structure. London puts in higher highs in the inside. All right. So I'm keeping note of that. The higher highs guide my trade because it starts my trade. Higher high, dump, coil right at the previous day's high. You take pin hammers and engulfments off of these levels. All right. So once you get the dump back down, the coil and the pump, take the engulfment candle, or in my case, since my session doesn't open up until 8 a.m., let's look. And wow, I would have just gotten in. So if I wasn't taking an entry right at the level, as you can see, actually, this is a special case, right? Because we have the weekly close right here and we have previous day's high. So this is actually a great example, guys, because now you're seeing the previous day's high and the weekly close acting as support. Great example that I showed. So we have the dump back down, higher high in the inside, dump, coil, pump. Once you're on the back side of this move, it's just about catching higher highs. Higher high, dump, pump. Higher high, dump, coil, pump. Higher high, dump, coil, pump. It's just about catching higher highs once you're on the back side. All right. So that is the trend continuation trade for a closing breakout signal. Now I'm going to show you guys another example. All right, so we have UJ again, and we actually have a close and breakout to the short side on Monday, right? So Tuesday, we're looking for our trade. All right, so I'm taking a continuation trade. Why? Because I trade New York session. So if you notice, we are at the previous day's low. Let's look and get a box. We actually breach it during London, right? It pulls back to closing price, if you can see that candle. So let me go to my 15-minute time frame so you can see it better. Scroll back a little. Okay. So if you look, it breaches the previous day's low, pumps back up to closing price, coils and gives pin hammers and engulfments off of these levels. So right when it pulls back, it gives you a nice pin hammer right at closing price. But because that's in the gap time and I'm waiting for my session, we get another breach of the previous day's low. So if we get a breach of the previous day's low, just like what happened in London, I'm looking for the same thing to happen during New York session. All right. So let's go down to the 5-minute time frame so I can show you entry. Let's see. Oh, scroll a bit back. Okay. So if you look, what am I looking for? If I'm taking the trend continuation trade, I'm just looking for breakout, pullback, trend. And in this case, we actually do get it. So once we breach the low, right? We get lower lows, pump back up, and all you're doing is taking engulfments and pin hammers off these levels. Even here, it gives you another lower low. It pumps back up, coils at the previous day's low, and dumps and continues to break down. Okay. So this is what you're looking for. You just need to get specific. Are you buying or are you selling? Because there are different variations of each setup. So let's look at one more example of a sell setup. All right, so we have EJ here, and EJ closed as a closing breakout on Thursday. So the next day, we're looking for the pump coil dump trade. And in this case, we get the trend continuation trade. Why? Because it breached the previous day's low. So when it breaches the previous day's low, we're looking for breakout, pullback, trend, right? But in this case, we have a special scenario. We have, let me scroll back, see here. We have the weekly close and we have the previous day low acting as resistance, just like we saw in the previous example for buys. We have this level acting as resistance and we have weekly close acting as resistance. So once we get our pump back up, so I draw my trend line here, I'm looking for lower lows in the inside, which London does give. So once we get our lower lows in the inside, it pumps back up to weekly closing price, coils, and then gives an engulfing pattern right off the level, guys, right in our session, right? So I'm taking that trade, and my first TP is always where the pump started. All right. So you can hold there and you can leave a runner till the close of the day, up to you, but this is as simple as it gets. This is as simple as it gets. It's not something, it's definitely something to overcomplicate if you're using two setups at once. But just like I showed you in the previous video or the previous slide, these setups have multiple variations. So you want to put yourself in the best scenario to win. So I hope this video helped you guys. Like and subscribe if you want me to keep dropping these example videos and keep reinforcing the process. 1% better every day. 1% better every day. So just keep reinforcing the process because it really matters. Repetition matters, guys. You have to have a playbook. So you need to be screenshotting these signals. Okay. So, like I said, study, make a playbook, and keep it simple. This is phase 3, and I'm out.